A few weeks ago on this podcast, I mentioned one word that was the trigger behind almost every single crisis. In this episode, I'm going to give you the word that is the trigger behind every crisis, but the distinction, it's the external trigger. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the PR Breakdown. I'm your host, Molly McPherson. Before we get to that word, I have to tell you, boy, did I have a week. I was in Austin for South by Southwest, or as the cool kids call it, South by. And let me tell you, it was nothing short of incredible. I was so fortunate to be part of a panel sponsored by Muck Rack. It was moderated by the co-founder and CEO, Greg Gallant. Joining me on the panel was Eleanor Hawkins. She is the person behind the communicator newsletter by Axios, and also Laura Barganier of Citi. The three of us spoke about the high-stakes world of crisis management. This was on Saturday afternoon. We spoke for an hour. You know, it's funny, when we came out to speak at first, I remember looking out at the crowd, and it was a fairly big room. I thought, there aren't a lot of people here. And then Greg started speaking, and I was immediately to his left. He asked a question, then I answered it, and then Eleanor answered it, and then Laura answered it, and I came back to him, and then I looked out, and the place was packed. That was exciting. And after that panel section, I laughed because I was so stressed. I was asked to do a Speaker Connect session by the organizers of South by Southwest. It was a small group AMA session. Anyone at South by could register and sit in for this session. I was so nervous because I spoke to someone working the front desk there, and I asked, what do I do next for the Speaker Connect? And she looked at me like, And just as she was saying, the person who asked me to do the Speaker Connect was right behind her, and he said, "Hey, Molly, how you doing?" It was Adam. I thought, perfect. You are the person I want to speak to right now. He gave me the deal, and I said, "Okay, Adam, you've got to give it to me straight. Has any speaker showed up to a room and no one's been there?" And he's like, "What?" No. He said, "No, we always get people here." But he said, "If it makes you feel any better," he said, "yours filled up immediately, and then one of the first ones to fill up." Now, do I think Adam was lying to me? No. Did I fully believe that Adam was telling me that my session filled up first before anyone else? Not necessarily, somewhere in the middle, but it did fill. I went into the room, and every single person in that room represented a section of my career. It was incredible. Some wanted to know crisis management. Some wanted to talk about TikTok. Some wanted to talk about the podcast. I loved the hour, and it was incredibly interesting. Then after that, my last night there, I spoke to, oh my gosh, also another favorite audience, young people. It was a fireside chat, how to spot a crisis. It was at St. Edward's University. I've never been on that campus. Beautiful Catholic school in Austin. So it was hosted by PRSA Austin. And Amelia Folks was the person who invited me, but also was the moderator. She asked me questions. It was a great Q&A, although there was no fireplace. So it really wasn't a fireside chat. But we had students there, people from PRSA, people from the board, and then just people who saw it promoted. It was fantastic. I was in Phoenix first because I spoke for an association on Tuesday. Then I had to fly to Austin. I was in the Delta Lounge sitting, reading articles, watching videos, and I came across one video posted by Reuters. In the headline, I felt I was going to find that word, and sure enough, the word itself jumped out right at me. Strip the politics aside and just focus on what this person, the voter, is saying, and you'll hear the word. Take a listen.
Jennifer Piggott voted for Trump in the November election. Then in February, she was fired from her civil service job.
Absolutely. I feel a little bit betrayed.
She was among more than 125 people dismissed last month from the Treasury Department's Bureau of Fiscal Service in Parkersburg, West Virginia.
There's always that back and forth conversation now. It's like, you knew this was coming, but we didn't. Like, nobody that I've talked to understood the devastation that having this administration in office would do to our lives.
Now, we've all seen how quickly a crisis can erupt. But if this word is ever in a soundbite or it's in a quote, then I know precisely what type of crisis it is, because it's a word that strips away all the layers of trust and leaves people raw. A few weeks ago on this podcast, I talked about that emotion that drives a crisis internally, and that is fear. That is the emotion that can create a crisis from within. Leadership, members of the board, someone is worried about something. In this case, it is the external feeling that creates an operational crisis. Betrayal is heavy. It brings back memories of personal letdowns, professional missteps, and those gut punch moments when someone flips the script on you. In activism and crisis communication, betrayal is a catalyst. It's that spark that can ignite chaos if it's not addressed. I want to provide two other examples of betrayal in this external crisis. I'll switch gears and include an article that I found yesterday on my travels, going through the newspaper and reading the headlines, and this one headline jumped out at me. And then another one that's hitting the press right now, and this falls into the corporate crisis communication space. The first one is out of Fairfax County, Virginia. I lived there on two different swings, and I remember this development. Kingstown, it's a huge townhome development. Think lots and lots of brick townhomes. The HOA, the Homeowners Association, decide to remove a beaver. When I saw this first article, it was the headline that brought me right in. It ran in the Washington Post on Tuesday, March 11th. Headline: An HOA set lethal traps for Wally the beaver. Neighbors fought back. How could you not be pulled in? Let me read the first two paragraphs of this article written by Kyle Melnick. First paragraph: signs that a beaver is in residence are evident all around the local pond. There are its teeth marks in the stumps of small trees it cuts down, the slapping sounds of its flat tail striking the water, and its dam made of hundreds of pieces of wood near the southwest corner of the Fairfax County, Virginia pond. The semi-aquatic rodent is called Wally, a name its neighbors bestowed in a nod to a character from the post-World War II era sitcom Leave It to Beaver. Post-World War II era sitcom? Kyle, how old are you? Now, I know Leave It to Beaver was black and white, and yet technically it was post-World War II programming. But are we going to say that about Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch? Oh my gosh, maybe just give it the decade. We don't need to call it post-World War II era sitcom, but it is cute. Wally, get it? And it's the beaver. Here's what happened. The HOA planned lethal traps to remove Wally to protect a pond. The reaction: over 2,000 community members signed a petition demanding a non-lethal solution. It's the petition that is bringing this story into this podcast episode because I work with clients who deal with petitions. They don't like them. It makes them nervous, which is understandable. But petitions are used often by activists or activist-minded people who feel a sense of betrayal. They want to retaliate. They want to strike back. It is a public way to bring notice to their issue, to this sense of betrayal. They typically go to change.org, and in this case, this petition is called Save Wally, the Soul of Kingstown Lake. Now, that's a little different from a semi-aquatic rodent. Listen to that language. Here's what they wrote under it, and you'll get a sense of why petitions can be effective. Urgent. Kingstown HOA hiring trappers to kill adolescent beaver. Take action now. This isn't a semi-aquatic animal that's destroying wildlife around I'd say, upscale townhome development. Here are the first two articles in the petition. Meet Wally, a young single beaver that has been seeking refuge in Kingstown Lake behind Ross since September of last year. Wally has cut a few tree saplings, mostly near the southwest corner of the lake, to build a small dam and lodge to call home. The dam has not damaged any buildings, landscaping, or infrastructure. The management of Kingstown Residential Owners Corporation, KROC, which owns the lake, feels that Wally is a nuisance and must be handled swiftly with the lowest effort and cost possible. In Virginia, it is illegal to transport or relocate a beaver. Therefore, they intend to trap and kill Wally. A trapper has been hired to set a trap in the coming days. All right. Do you hear the framing in that language? It is not a rodent who is destroying property around this upscale enclave of townhomes. It is a young single beaver. It's a character. We don't like to kill characters that have names. This is a brilliant campaign that was hatched by the advocates in Kingstown who do not want to see Wally gnawed to death within a lethal trap. That is activism in action. Now, does this fall in the corporate crisis communications sense? No, but it's a communication tool that an activist group, people part of the Kingstown community, use to apply pressure to the HOA. Now, the Washington Post tried to get quotes from the HOA. They went no comment. So you can see how effective this can be. Typically, I tell clients not to worry about these petitions because the petition is designed just to create more negative publicity. They want to get the attention of the press. It worked in Wally's case, and it often works in bigger cases where there are numbers in the activism. When there's just a few people, it's not quite as effective. But it can be a tool that applies just the right amount of pressure. And in this case, here's another example that's the corporate angle, and that's Target's crisis. And it's not just about grassroots or local issues. The Target Corporation, recently their stock plummeted about $27.27 per share on February 28th, wiping out roughly $12.4 billion in market value. This happened on an economic blackout day amid a growing backlash over Target's decision to drop its diversity, equity, and inclusion commitments. Is Target the only company that is dropping DEI? No. Is it the only big box retailer to drop DEI initiatives? No. But Target is being targeted. Shareholders are suing, arguing that these DEI policies hurt financial performance, while conservative groups are claiming the policies discriminate. So the message out there is that Target is unfairly targeting certain consumers. Now, Target has been in the crosshairs because in 2023, they rolled back their Pride Month merchandise collection. This case shines a light on what happens when leadership flip-flops on values. If you remember, Bud Light, Dylan Mulvaney, that's when corporate was struggling with the trans issue and Pride Month, and they stepped back. But now here we are with an administration that is pressuring companies to drop DEI initiatives. So for Target, they were sued Thursday by Florida and America First Legal for allegedly concealing the financial risks of its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs stemming from the 2023 Pride Month merchandise collection. But on the other hand, Target is getting backlash because of their DEI retreat. On January 24th, days into the Trump presidency, Target announced it was eliminating hiring goals for minority employees, ending an executive committee focused on racial justice, and making other changes to its diversity initiative. Target was calling the new strategy belonging at the bullseye. Now, I highlighted all of the big box retailers' decision to step back on DEI for a webinar that I did back in January. The news was hitting just at that time. And in this webinar about how to write a statement, this past week when I was speaking, DEI came up. As a matter of fact, it was the last question asked on my last day on the road. It was asked by someone in the crowd at St. Edward's. She was asking the question about DEI because it isn't easy. It is not easy to navigate. You could cede and follow what the administration is doing so you can protect your business with this administration for money, or the public is going to pay attention and they are going to see what you're doing as well. And that is what's happening. People are boycotting Target. I saw an article published today in the Charlotte Post. This is the voice of the Black community. In this article by Stacey M. Brown, the National Newspaper Publishers Association has acted through its public education and selective buying campaign. NPA President Benjamin F. Chavez Jr. said, quote, Black consumers helped build Target into a retail giant, and now they are making their voices heard. If corporations believe they can roll back diversity commitments without consequence, They are mistaken, end quote. They also brought research to the table. Black people spend $12 million a day at Target. If we withhold our dollars, we can make a statement that cannot be ignored. This is backlash activism that is making a real impact. You can see whether it is a beaver or it is a big retailer stepping back on an important initiative, people are going to strike out. The impact, this isn't just a policy misstep, it's betrayal of the trust that helped build the brand to people. When stakeholders feel betrayed, they react, and that reaction can be swift and severe. Betrayal is the word of this podcast. It's a little like Sesame Street. The letter of the day is B. The word of the day is betrayal. It's a word that carries a heavy weight. When we hear it, our minds race back to personal experiences. Think about the time when someone betrayed you. Not just someone upset you or someone let you down. Someone betrayed you. It's more than just a feeling. It can lead to a full-blown trigger for chaos. There's a personal impact. When someone you believe flips the script, it's like your whole world shifts. It's that gut punch that makes you question everything, whether it's a personal betrayal or a brand you believed in. It's a crisis catalyst. In operational terms, betrayal sparks a rapid-fire chain reaction. It's the spark that can ignite a movement into a full crisis if it's not managed carefully. And it can be a repeated cycle. Once that betrayal is out in the open, people start to see themselves as victims. And let's be honest, when anyone feels victimized, it's hard to break free from that cycle. If you're a communicator listening, ask yourself, how does your company deal with betrayal when it comes to your leaders, when it comes to your board, your communities? When your stakeholder feels betrayed, do you think you can rebuild that trust once it's been shattered? How do you break the cycle of betrayal? What do you do when it starts to spread? Here are some steps. First is that self-reflection, the mirror test, look within. It's not just about what someone says or the attack against you. It's about the core belief. What does your company stand for? What are your values? Do they go against the values of your stakeholders? You need to determine if the answer is yes or no. If it goes against, then be prepared for the backlash. Ways to work around it, open dialogue. Create safe spaces for conversation. Allow people to express their hurt, even if it stings. Also, revisit leadership. Ask tough questions, communicators. Ask the tough questions of your leadership. Do we have transparency? Is there accountability? Are our stakeholders, our customers, are they right? And as communicators, if you see something that is encroaching on the reputation of your company, act early. Catch the moment that betrayal starts to creep in. You can be the shining star of your organization if you can spot that. And sitting in a room with a bunch of young people, a bunch of PRSSA members, they're asking questions about jobs and working in comms and how can you get hired. What I told them is find a way to not only be relevant, but to bring a media and social media literacy to the table. You can break through and see these emotions. I think younger people have a much better handle on how to do that. If you're a young person looking for a job, this is a way that you can get your foot in the door. If you're an established communicator in your job, this is a way to make a difference. Self-reflection, open dialogue, that rebuilds the trust. Betrayal may seem like a small word, but its impact is enormous. It can transform internal dynamics overnight, whether in an activist movement, a corporate boardroom, or your everyday relationships. For those of us who work in communication, the challenge is clear. You have to be vigilant. You have to be empathetic. And above all, you have to be prepared to address this betrayal head on. That's all for this week on the PR Breakdown. I hope this episode resonated with you, especially if you're in the communication field, where trust and accountability, they're everything. Remember, sometimes the smallest word can make a big impact. If you're a communicator who's hungry for more of this no-nonsense take on the latest in crisis communication, join me on Substack, because this week it's all about betrayal. This is a community that I've been building over on Patreon, and now I'm bringing it to Substack. Get exclusive stories and notes, behind the scenes reflections, and direct, candid advice delivered straight to your inbox. You can find me there by name or by my publication, .media. That is the URL that goes straight to the publication. I love Substack. I put my podcast on there. I have weekly articles on there. I do audio articles on there. I do live video. I have a couple coming up. I'm going to do monthly trainings as well. You can find me there, but you can also find the best writers, journalists, educators on the platform. A lot of journalists who are leaving jobs by choice and not by their choice, they're ending up over on Substack. And I'm telling you, it is a fabulous place to go in terms of an app. Stop doom scrolling on other social media apps and head over to Substack. It's great for your mind. So join my community there. Again, prbreakdown.media. Until next time, everyone, stay true to your values, stay vigilant, and keep those conversations with your stakeholders honest. Catch you on the next episode of the PR Breakdown. Bye for now.